Thanks for joining us here today. We are joined with Matt Haney, a scientist in charge with the Alaska Volcano Observatory and USGS. And Matt, first of all, thank you for joining us here to give us some updates on Spur.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure, Melissa.
Yeah, so we have been watching the daily updates that AVO has been putting out on Spur, obviously with the increased anticipation of an eruption possibly looming, we think, this year. But lately those updates have been pretty status quo, you know, kind of nothing new to see here. We're still seeing some earthquakes, some unrest, but no increased activity beyond what we had been seeing earlier in the year. But today's update was a little different. Today's update said, you know, maybe there isn't as much certainty into the possibility of an eruption. So can you just explain the update that we got today?
Yes, so this was our information statement today. It's the first one that we've put out since March 12, and before that we put out one on February 6th. And so the overriding message is, you know, overall the likelihood of an eruption has decreased at Mount Spur since mid-March, but the volcano is still in unrest, and there is, uncertainty in this prognosis from today, from this forecasting, because we haven't been able to get out to the volcano and make a gas measurement of gas emissions at the volcano since March 21. So we would prefer to be able to make those measurements ideally between every week and 2 weeks. But as folks in South Central and in Anchorage know, we've had the weather has been a little bit more winter-like lately. It's been not possible to get out there since March 21st. So I can go into some more details about that uncertainty. But with that increase in uncertainty, based on the data that we're getting, the real-time data of earthquakes and deformation at the volcano, the likelihood has decreased since mid-March.
Okay, great. So we heard from you folks late last year. It was about a 50-50 chance of an eruption. And then, of course, earlier this year, that increased as that activity increased. So now you're saying that there's still possibility of an eruption, but you're not as certain that that would happen in the coming months. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, so the volcano is still in unrest. It's been in unrest. It's had higher numbers of earthquakes than normal over the past year. And we're not changing our color code continues at yellow. The alert level is advisory. So, the big picture hasn't changed. And we've seen these fluctuations in the number of earthquakes, for example, over the course of this period of unrest. And we've recently, in addition to that decrease in the number of earthquakes, we've also seen that the deformation of the volcano, the outward inflation of the surface of the volcano has slowed in the past few weeks. So both of those data sets are telling us that, the volcano is not pressurizing as it was before. And so the likelihood has decreased since the first gas measurements were made of anomalous gas emissions in mid-March. But with the caveat that we haven't been able to get out to make another gas measurement since March 21. So we're looking, like a lot of folks, at the weather forecasts, and at the very first weather window that we see, we're going to get our folks out there and fly to Mount Spur and make the next gas measurements.
Okay. Is there a situation where you could have the deformation pause, you could have the earthquakes kind of slow, but still have gas emissions such that would show that magma is building?
That's one of the questions that we want to get, that complete data set to give us a full picture of. I like to say that in volcano monitoring, there is no one single silver bullet of a data set. We want to have as much data as we can possibly get our hands on. We want to have the gas data. We want to have deformation, seismic. So we're getting a partial picture right now of a decrease in the amount of unrest at Spur. I will mention too that, getting our hands on all the data, we also can measure sulfur dioxide, one of the species of gas that we measure, in satellite data. And we last measured sulfur dioxide an anomalous amount in satellite data on April 3. So that's more recently than March 21st. But since then, we haven't been able to see any anomalous amounts of sulfur dioxide. But again, that could be due to other factors, meteorological, in the analysis of satellite data. Certainly, the preferred, the highest, most precise measurement is to fly there in either an aircraft or helicopter to make the measurement as close as possible to the volcano. But there is more data out there that we can take advantage of, satellite data, to look at sulfur dioxide emissions.
Okay, that all makes sense. Now, you've explained greatly here over the past several months how you have sort of leaned on some understanding from past eruptions, back in 1953 and 92 and what we saw there, even 2004, I believe it was, when we saw some unrest and then nothing happened in terms of an eruption, and even looking to read out for some clues of what the possibilities are. So can you just kind of explain what happened in 2004 when we had this period of unrest but no eruption?
In 2004 through 2006, there was a magma intrusion. So, similar to what we're having now, magma intruded beneath the volcano. There was an elevated number of earthquakes. There was deformation. There was melting of ice and snow at the summit. There were gas emissions above background. So those parts are, in common to what we're seeing today. But we're looking, when we get the real-time monitor data, when we're getting the gas data, we're making comparisons to that library of that database of knowledge from what was observed in 04 and in 92 to look at the patterns and match. Are what we've seen, is it looking more like 20 years ago when we had a failed eruption? Just unrest that did not culminate in an eruption at the volcano, or are the patterns looking more like what was observed in 1992 when the unrest did culminate in an eruption? And there are similarities in the current data streams to 2004, 2005, 2006. There are similarities to 1992, and we are constantly reevaluating and interpreting the data sets to make those connections. One that I'll point out is in the current unrest and in 1992, there was a lot of earthquakes beneath Crater Peak, which is the active vent at Mount Spur, which is 2 miles south of the summit. In 2004, the overwhelming majority of earthquakes were beneath the summit. There wasn't really an activation of the conduit beneath Crater Peak. So that observation is pointing back to 1992, and that first observation of that was in our February 6th information statement. We discussed that. So that that's one piece of the puzzle, if you will. But then there's the deformation, there's the gas. So when we first saw the focusing of earthquakes beneath Crater Peak, more earthquakes beneath Crater Peak in late January and early February, that led to the assessment of February 6th that we judged that an eruption versus a non-eruption or a failed eruption, the likelihood was they were equally likely scenarios. So that's how things stood based where we were on February 6th. Then in our March statement, we began measuring higher amounts of volcanic gas than normal. And so then we communicated that by saying that has increased from where we were at on February 6th, where we expressed that the most likely scenario, time frame uncertain, was that this would play out like 1953 and 1992. But then since mid-March, now the earthquakes have backed off a bit. And I should note, those are the shallow earthquakes in the uppermost 3 miles of the earth beneath Mount Spur. The deeper earthquakes, which are happening deeper, down by 20 miles depth, have continued at their rate. That rate has not changed. So that gives you another sort of perspective into the context of the changes. So based on that, the slowing down of the deformation, the likelihood has decreased over the past month, but it's certainly not zero. We're not going from color code yellow to color code green. We're not at background. The earthquakes, even the shallow ones that have decreased over the past month, are still above background levels. So it continues to be a dynamic situation. The volcano is continuing to react to the intrusion of new magma beneath it.
Gotcha. And so is it possible to even say, are we back to kind of a 50-50 scenario or less than that? Or is it even possible to put a number on it like that?
With the uncertainty, it's not possible to put a number on it. It's decreased from where it was in mid-March. So it's decreased closer to being, an equally likely eruption versus non-eruption. But we're going to hold off until we get the full suite of data with our next gas flight. And these types of fluctuations are seen there. As someone who does real-time monitoring, they can be frustrating when we have these fluctuations. There's not always just a sort of a simple buildup. I think back to 2009, the Redoubt eruption, which is the closest volcano to Mount Spur, the one to the south of Mount Spur. And at Redoubt, there were fluctuations there where we originally went to color code orange in that case 2 months before the eruption started on March 22nd, 2009. But then in the weeks before the eruption, we went from orange to yellow because there was a decline in seismicity. But then before the eruption on March 22nd, 2009, the seismicity came back and there was an earthquake swarm, and we went back to orange and then to red when the volcano erupted. So these, thinking back to I remember that time frame in early March when the seismicity backed off at Redoubt, and there was a similar, question of like, whoa, is this declining now? Are we going to have a failed eruption, or is it going to be rejuvenated and come back? So that's just one example from Redoubt. But then in Spur 04 through 06, the seismicity built up and it declined, and it eventually over the years 05, 06, it declined back to background, and in 2006 we went from yellow to green. So yeah, we will be looking at all the data streams to decrease the uncertainty in the forecasting, and to ultimately say that this is either headed towards that failed eruption scenario, or if it's going to progress. And before it progresses to an eruption, we should see signals of increased volcanic tremor. We haven't seen that yet. In 1992 at Spur, the scientists at AVO at that time started to see those signals 3 weeks before its first explosion on June 27th, 1992. So if it is going to turn around and begin an upward trajectory, we will see more signals. This type of volcano that Mount Spur is, it's not going to erupt out of the blue without giving us these signals ahead of time.
So additional natural signals still expected. And you mentioned those color codes, green, yellow, orange, red. So it is still in that yellow, that advisory alert level. And so that tells the public that, hey, this is still a potential, but again, we're not at the orange or red level yet, and we're also not at the green level, right? You'll change the colors should there be any dramatic shift.
Yes, the color code is the overriding characterization of where we're at the volcano. So at the volcano, we're still in unrest. We're still getting earthquakes, and so we're going to continue keeping a very close tabs on Mount Spur, and I foresee that these earthquakes, they've been going on and higher than background for the past year. So I don't expect that it's going to resolve itself anytime in the near future. These types of unrest periods, like in 04, 06, that went on for a year and a half, so they can persist. once the volcano is perturbed, it takes a while for it to sort things out if it's not going to go towards an eruption. I also wanted to bring up another part of our information statement that I was excited about, and I think people will be excited to see, is we announced that we have a live stream of Mount Spur on. It's hosted on YouTube, and in the information statement, there's a link to it. It's a live stream from the Glen Alps neighborhood, and so in clear weather conditions, we invite people to check out the live stream, and there should be an excellent view of Mount Spur as we see it.
Gotcha. Great. Yeah. More information, more views, the better, right? And then I also want to just talk to you about the people that have taken some time to prepare for a possible eruption. Maybe they've picked up some N95 masks or, some goggles or just some extra air filters to have ready on hand. What would you say to those folks that have made those preparations? Was that worthwhile? And to the folks that still have that on their to-do list, like, oh yeah, I have that in my Amazon cart, haven't quite gotten to it. Is that still worthwhile?
Yes, we're still in a preparation phase or a preparation stage. So those preparations are not in vain. Those, in addition to a normal disaster preparedness kit to augment it with those items that you mentioned, especially items I mentioned before. In 1992, there was 3 weeks of this volcanic tremor before the first eruption, and certainly anything that people feel is going to take more than 3 weeks or thereabouts to acquire, then have those items. And we live in the Cook Inlet area. We have Spur, we have Redoubt, and so just looking back into the past, we have eruptions in this area. Certainly, every decade or every decade to 2 decades. So it's something that we live in a volcanically active area. The last ashfall was from Redoubt in 2009. It wasn't nearly as much as Spur in 1992, but it's something that we should be prepared for in South Central and in Anchorage.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then also, so I forecast the weather, use models and data and tools to try and predict the future, which is essentially what you're doing. But it is just kind of perplexing to me to think about there's magma coming from the center of the earth into this mountain, and you're trying to monitor it in a sense to figure out how it's going to change into the future. Just as a scientist, and maybe like as a kid thinking about being a scientist when you grow up, I don't know, does that ever get lost on you that that's what you're doing?
Sometimes you have to kind of pinch yourself and think, just how this natural phenomenon that you're talking about, volcanoes building up to an eruption. It is, it's fascinated people for centuries, going back to, ancient times, the eruption of Mount Vesuvius and other volcanoes around the world, and at other volcano observatories around the world, not just here in Alaska. We live in an active area in Alaska. We typically have 1 or 2 significant eruptions per year. So even though we haven't had one in the Cook Inlet since 2009, in a typical year, they're normally out in the Aleutian Islands or Alaska Peninsula. We have monitoring networks out there, and we will monitor those volcanoes and observe their progression. So it is it's a fascinating state to live in for many reasons, and this is just one of them. That yes, we have deep under the earth in Alaska magma, intruding beneath volcanoes and leading to earthquakes and in many cases eruptions at volcanoes in our state.
Yeah, it's very interesting for sure. Well, Matt Haney, scientist in charge of Alaska Volcano Observatory, thank you so much for joining us and giving us this update. I know that you guys are monitoring it with that equipment all the time, and of course you'll let us know if anything changes. But it sounds like as for now, the uncertainty has dropped some, but you're really waiting on additional data from those gas emissions and hopefully some clear weather around here to get up there and check that out. If you do get that data, do you think you'll send out another update?
Yes, once we have the next gas flight and we process the data, then we should be able to, decrease the uncertainty with that additional data and be able to say more definitively whether this decrease in the likelihood at Mount Spur is further supported by the gas data and is in harmony with what we're seeing with the earthquake and in the deformation data.
Gotcha. Great. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you, Melissa, for having me.